Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Patrick Dietzel. I am here with Mitch Sutler, and our topic today is tackling the terror of technical debt. Again, my name is Patrick. I am from the Huntington National Bank. I am the manager of the ServiceNow Strategy and Epics team. And along with me is Mitch Sutler. Mitch, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Patrick, and hey, everybody.
So to start, what is technical debt? So there's many different types of technical debts. We have software technical debt, which is a result of poor coding, where code got into the environment maybe less efficiently than we would. And there's time where we would have to go back through, replace this code using additional resources, additional funding. There's process technical debt, which is when there might be conflicting objectives between teams or poor leadership in which a inefficient process is put into place in production and has to be remediated again through a different project at a later date, causing inefficiencies. And there's a third type of technical debt, which is what we're going to discuss today, and that's vendor technical debt. And this is a result of not staying on current technology. So, technical debt, why do we care? Technical debt introduces risk into our environment. Now again, Huntington National Bank, we are a financial institution. Risk is one of our primary concerns, and one of the large focuses of IT is how do we mitigate the risk in our environment. Technical debt introduces multiple types of risk in the IT environment. First off, it's security risk. If you're few versions behind of software, you're not going to be receiving the latest patches. If you're not being patched, you're going to have known vulnerabilities, known not just to your team internally, but also known to all the bad guys out there. And that leaves you open to potential hacking, potential traps, other types of information that might be leaked in ways that you do not want it. Secondly, you're running on antiquated technology. So again, there might be better ways, new algorithms, new code, new modules that are available that you're not using. Again, leaving yourself open to other types of nefarious actors who are going to try to get into your systems. And lastly, there's compatibility issues with other technologies. If you're running on old versions, outdated applications, when you're trying to build integrations with other apps, you might have to do some additional workarounds. You might have to grant access where you wouldn't otherwise want to, all because of running on technical debt, software and hardware. Additionally, there's financial risk. As most of you know in the ServiceNow world, the further you fall behind, the more costly it is to catch up. Using ServiceNow as an example, they like to keep us within the 1 or 2 versions of their software. If you start falling behind, it's going to take a significant amount of work to catch up. It's going to take additional investment from a resource perspective, your colleagues, your contractors. It might require you to purchase additional assets, new infrastructure, new hardware. All of this is a lot more investment in the financial side than it would be if you just stayed up to date throughout the project's lifecycle. And then the third type of risk is vendor risk. So if you have vendor technical debt, you have active assets in your environment that are out of support. So think if you have a critical process running on technical debt, if all of a sudden you lose that asset, who's going to support it? That can be a major risk to your organization if a critical process is down and you have no support staff and have to scramble to bring that process back up. And you're also going to be missing out on the latest features and functionality. Again, going back to ServiceNow, we know every release, they offer a plethora of new tools, new advancements, new code updates. These are things that you miss out. And especially if you're not staying up to date, you could potentially be rebuilding custom code, internal, that would already be offered by the vendor if you stayed up to date on their current process and their current versions. So now that we know what tech debt is, let's look at the problem statement that my organization had. Is 2 parts. First, how do we accurately and effectively identify technical debt in the environment? And then secondly, once identified, how can we share this data so that action can be taken to mitigate the risk? And this is where ServiceNow came to place. So I managed the CMDB and the asset data sources. Within asset and the CMDB, we have models and we have our CIs and asset records. So we made two changes to the tables. First, on the CMDB model table, we created a new lifecycle tab. On that tab, we added 5 custom fields, as you can see in the screenshot. And the two most important of those are our end of support date and end of extended support date. End of support date is the vendor determined date for when they will stop supporting a given model. So if we look at the example on the right for our Hewlett-Packard ProLiant DL360PG8 server, the end of support date is June 1st, 2020, meaning HP will no longer support this model past June 1st, 2020. The second date we have is end of extended support. And this is if we purchase any support, whether it's from a vendor or a third party, to supplement the expired support offered by the vendor. In this case, end of extended support is empty because we do not have additional support in place yet. And the greater of these two dates, meaning the furthest future of these two dates, is what we consider the at-risk date. This means when all assets of this model will be out of support. And within Huntington, we have identified support groups and owners for every model. So we were able to push this task to populate the end of life and end of support out to our model owners. However, we are researching ways that we can start to pull this data in automatically, either through third-party subscription or through ServiceNow offerings like SAM Pro and the upcoming HAM Pro. The second piece of customization we did was renaming the retirement date on asset to scheduled refresh. Now, this is pretty minor. It's an out-of-the-box field, but retirement date is more of a definite date. This is the date we know that this asset will be retired. We renamed it scheduled refresh, so it's more of a forward-looking target date. So in the example below, we have a Hewlett-Packard ProLiant ML350 G10 server. It is a Windows server, and the scheduled refresh date is 12/31/2022. So part of the reason we want this listed as scheduled refresh is because we can put some automation in place to populate this date. For example, servers in our environment have a 3-year life cycle. So we know if we stand up a new server, 12/31/2019, we can add 3 years to that and automatically identify a scheduled refresh date. Now that date can move as projects change, as our life cycle may expand, and we would keep that date current as to when this particular asset will be refreshed in our environment. So now that we have our model end of support dates populated and our scheduled refresh dates populated on all assets, we can start doing reporting and understanding how this data actually compiles when looking at it from a macro perspective and start reporting this data upwards. So what we've done, what we did previous, is created a series of reports in Excel. Like most organizations, we use the tools at our disposal. Now this is back maybe around 2016, 2017. ServiceNow reporting was still very limited at that point. We did not have performance analytics, and the out-of-the-box reporting tool really didn't get us the visualizations we needed in order to send this data upwards to our management. So what we did was we created multiple reports from ServiceNow. We extracted those into an Excel spreadsheet, and we created technical debt and scheduled refresh reports to identify a year-by-year look at our environment. So the current screenshot here is our accumulating hardware technical debt. So this is where, if we did not make any investments in any of our existing technical debt, this is how technical debt would grow in our enterprise year by year. You can see we had it broken down by class and really just captured it in a stacked bar chart. This view was the first time we were really able to visualize technical debt for the entire environment in one quick, easy view. We also have the data table down below so that they can see specific data counts for the individual assets that make up the stacked bar charts. Now, the problems with this. First, the process for refreshing these reports was very timely. Now, we would do these reports once a month as part of our operating book, and it would take, in some cases, up to 2 business days in order to compile all this data, build the reports, refresh everything, throw it in our PowerPoint slide, and have it packaged and ready for our monthly operating book review. And then as we began to evolve these reports and create different views, we ran into technical limitations with our hardware. Now, myself as a manager, I only have a standard laptop. I actually was not able to run some of our Excel reports because they were so intensive. We need to send them to developers and use a developer laptop. And even then, the developer laptop would really be pushed to its limits because there's so much data, so many calculations and formulas, all being updated in Excel. Another problem was, as you can imagine, if we're sending this data up to management, the first thing the CTO would look at, he'd pick out one of these large problem areas, we'll say personal computers, go to the support group and the process owner for personal computer data and say, why is our technical debt at this level? They would then dig into the CMDB, fix their data, work with us, and want to see that data reflected to see if their problem had been resolved. So that means now, at an ad hoc basis throughout the month, we had to spend multiple hours rerunning these reports so that we can confirm the problem was resolved and the numbers are now aligned with what the support groups and the process owners would expect them to be. So with all these additional requirements, we knew we needed a change. So at this point, we were fortunate enough to be introduced to Vivid Charts and Mitch Stutler and partnered with him on coming up for a solution for our reporting requirements. So Mitch, would you like to talk to our initial engagement and how that got started?
Yeah, absolutely. It was absolutely timely when we ran into you all. We were an early product when we first met with you, less than 6 months old, just a few months old, really. And we just had a minimal viable product. But one thing we noticed when we started talking with you is how much manual work there was around reporting with ServiceNow data. It was really astounding to us, and it was really encouraging to us as well, because we knew we were onto something at that point. And we realized it wasn't just Huntington that was running into this. But with that said, Huntington really had the vision and awareness that we didn't have at the time and recognized this problem where, we've got this amazing platform, ServiceNow, where we're doing all sorts of automation and all sorts of technical heavy lifting, but we're still in the stone ages with reporting where we've got to pull things into Excel, literally millions of records, and spend a ton of time manipulating that data just to present on it on a monthly basis. And they really realize that the manual reporting leads to stale data, which really leads to bad decisions. So really kudos to Huntington for having the thought leadership and the early adopter mindset to try to tackle this problem, which we were able to do with Huntington. Thanks, Patrick. I'll let you keep rolling here.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mitch. Appreciate that. All right. And so after our partnership with Mitch and Vivid Charts, we were able to build a new series of reports within ServiceNow. So our automated view of technical debt. These new reports, again, were built within Vivid Charts. It's an add-in application for ServiceNow, a third-party application from the store. And the great thing about these reports is they will display the current CMDB data when they are loaded. So no longer do we have to manually run these reports, spend hours and hours, at some point days, to rebuild these every month. And especially for those troublesome ad hoc requests, we're able to pull this data in real time, reflect the real data whenever necessary. And even better, we were able to capture this URL and provide it not just to the CTO, but to all of our users, all the data owners, support groups, process owners, so that everybody can view this data at their leisure. And while they're making updates in the CMDB, they can refresh this report and see their data being updated in real time. We're also able, if you notice in the screenshot in the bottom left, there's some arrows. We're actually able to create this as a PowerPoint deck. So you can hit the arrows and slide through all of our different reports. Made it very easy for us to capture information, take a screenshot, paste it into our PowerPoint, and what used to take days to put together now was reduced just to a few hours. And even better, it was standard every time. The reports didn't change. Really was a very big benefit to our team and our reporting needs. Some other cool stuff that was added by Vivid Charts is these charts are interactive. For those of you that are familiar with ServiceNow reports, Vivid Charts works the same way. You can click into any one of these data elements. So we have it in a stacked bar chart. You could hover over, like the screenshot in the bottom right, to see exactly how many of a given asset type was included for that year. And then if you click into that, so we're looking at wireless access points, you can click into that that chart element, and it would display the CIs listed behind the scenes. So we can see the exact 280 wireless access points that are out of compliance for that given year, which makes it even easier for the end users to update their data because they can see the exact element, they can see the filter that's being used, and it was really a great win for our team. But of course, as soon as you start providing the updated reports, changes are requested. So now that we were displaying our technical debt and our scheduled refresh very clearly, our CTO challenged us with a very good question. How do I take action on this data? All we were really doing was displaying raw numbers. This is our count of technical debt. This is our count of scheduled refresh. So what we began to work on was the refresh delta report. And so what this does is basically combines the technical debt view and the scheduled refresh view. So in the screenshot here, the green represents assets that are being refreshed before support expires. So for example, we'll take a look at the 2020 bar. You'll notice the green, that is everything that we are refreshing in the year 2020. So we can see what our refresh looks like going forward. The red represents items that hit their end of support, their at-risk dates prior to being refreshed. So while green is basically a static year view, these are the counts for every given year, red is cumulative. So in 2020, we have X amount of at-risk items that are not being refreshed. If those items are not refreshed by 2021, then it's going to be X plus Y, where Y is the items that are now hitting their at-risk date in 2021, not being refreshed. So this view shows us basically our risk footprint for out-of-support assets, and also the view of when they may or may not be getting refreshed. You'll notice that the 2099 bar is all green. 2029 or 2099 was our internal date for items that are not scheduled for refresh. So with a date field in ServiceNow, and more technical folks that will know this, the options are either add a value or leave it empty. And since we wanted to also measure completeness of the data, we wanted to populate a date for every single field, even if one may not exist. So our compromise was add a date of 12/31/2099 to indicate, yes, we reviewed this and there is no active date. So that's why you see the data out there. And one other item we created new for this refresh data, you can see in the top right of the screenshot, there's actually a drop-down field. And this allows you to filter by class type. So the current view is just showing all assets all assets that we consider in scope for refresh and technical debt. And that drop down will actually allow you to get more granular. So again, we could provide this view to a senior manager or to the CTO, and in their staff meetings, they can choose that drop down and they can drill into Windows servers, IP firewalls, personal computers, wireless access points, whatever asset class they're interested in. They can see what the risk and what our refresh looks like for the upcoming 5-year period in real time. Now again, these reports are always evolving, so some future changes we're going to add. We want to also add a drop down for support group so that we can not just filter by class, but filter by support group. So we can see what support groups have refresh and at-risk issues. And again, all of this is so that we can put the power in the hands of the end user, whether that end user is low-level tech with their hands on the keyboards making the data updates, or all the way up to our leadership team who's analyzing the data and setting our direction for a roadmap, for strategy, for budget. And again, all of this